What we want to do in this first stage 1 training is understand how the G4 guitar method works. As Mark Kane said, at all times it's better to have a method than to be operating without one. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Alright, now there are several things that we're going to cover here in the G4 guitar method. First we're going to talk about the gold, we're going to talk about 5-week intro, the 7 C's, daily practice sheet, practice log, levels and checklists, songs, AMEB, group teaching, student confidence, consistency and professionalism. Let's get started. So what's the goal? Depending on the age, the goal is to take your students through the 7 junior levels if they're between the ages of about 6 and 12, and then the senior levels if they're teenagers through to adults. And once you take them through those 3 senior levels, then you can move them on to what we call AMEB, and there's 4 steps there. Now, how long does each level take? About 6 months, except for when you get to the senior levels, they take a little bit longer, maybe 9 months to 12 months per level, and then the same with the AMEB, they take about 1 year for each of them. Now, the AMEB, by the way, is an Australian exam. So if you are in America, if you're one of our members overseas, we have members around the world, then you can still prepare for it. It's great to do, or you can do it your own program, whatever happens to be in your country. But if you don't have one that you're aware of, then just use the AMEB. We've got the checklists for that, so it's just as easy as using our checklists. Now, the average student, if they're, let's say, a senior student, they'll take about 4 years to complete that whole program, which means that if you stay on track with the program, you should be able to keep your students for at least 4 years and maybe longer. Okay, so we begin with what we call the 5-week introduction. This will give your students a chance to gain a general understanding of the 7 essential skills of guitar. Use this time to build trust and gain confidence. The confidence of your new student. Learning guitar will take years, so be honest with them and tell them that it's going to take a little while. That, you know, I generally say, look, it's going to take you at least 1 year to get to a level where you feel that you can play guitar, and then it'll take another year to really reach the goals that you are probably aspiring to. That is enough to get them to see the bigger picture, because really we know it's going to take even longer to get right through the program. If they ask the question, how long does it take to get through the program to finish right to the end, say 4 to 5 years. Be honest with them, but just tell them, you know, to play at a reasonable level, it's going to take you about 1 year to 2 years, depending. Now, if you have any problems or doubts about this 5-week intro when you're teaching it, then let us know, ask questions. Remember that you don't want to give them too much. Each week of the 5-week introduction is about just giving them a little bit. So in the first week, in that first lesson, there's a special video you can watch, but just to give you a quick idea, then you just want to introduce how to sit with the guitar, the first picking exercise, just one picking exercise, and then the 1-finger chords. There's just a couple of those, like the C and the G7 and even the G, you can give those chords. But don't give any more than that, even if they're an adult student. The only time you'll give more than that is if they've actually had some experience on guitar. And when you teach those students who have had experience, the idea is you grab the first checklist, you go through and tick off the boxes that they can do successfully in that first lesson, and then you go on from there. Now, I suggest that if you have a student who is advanced, who's had guitar experience before, that you book them in for an hour for that first lesson, so you can work through, first of all, what they've done, and then use the second half an hour to actually get them going and give them some work to do. Okay. So here are the 7 C's, and it's really good if you can try and memorize these, just internalize them, because they're really important. They'll make the hugest difference to your teaching. If you can put these 7 C's into play, you will rarely, if ever, lose a student, and you will have such a great result. So here we go. Connect. Connecting with your students and parents. How do you do that? Connecting with your students is about getting to know who they are, asking them questions and finding some common ground. The way to connect with anyone is to find common ground. Think about when you meet someone, first you might talk about the weather, you might talk about the place that you're in, and then you find something. You gradually, through small talk, you might, you know, vote for the same political party, you might have the same, you know, wear the same brand of clothing or something. You find common ground. And this is what you're trying to do with your students. Ask them about the music, the guitar, find out what they're into, especially with parents, because as adults we're more likely to have something in common with the parents, and then you can connect from that to the children. Because you don't have to necessarily always build connect immediately with the student. If you can do it with their parent, it's just as good. Okay, so that's connect. We'll talk about these things in more depth as you do more of the training. Confidence, building their confidence is critical, and again I'll explain more of that as we go, but you need to always be giving your student a feeling that they're getting better, that they can do this. It's all about you can do it. Stick with it, do these things, and it will happen for you, and that's confidence building. Focus on what they're doing well, focus on their strengths. All these exercises are confidence building. Now, number 3 here is create a fun, positive atmosphere. Whenever they come in, try and be positive. Don't be down. Don't be morbid, if you like. Always look excited to see them. Look like you're pleased to see them. If little Johnny's walking in, Johnny, how you going? Great to see you. Come on in. This makes them feel good, so they have a positive association to being at your studio, and they want to come each week. They're looking forward to it. Even if they're not practicing that much and getting the stuff going, they're at least looking forward to it while you can work on that stuff, and we're going to show you how to do that as well. Now, number 4 is check in each week with your students' progress. That means don't just carry on with the lesson and give them new things to do. Look at what they're doing. Where are we up to? How much did you practice this week? The first thing that I want to see is your practice log, because when you focus on this, you focus on how much practice they've done, they're more likely to do the practice, and they're more likely to fill in the log because they know that you're going to be checking it every week, first thing. So make a big deal about that. Check in on your students' progress. Cover the facts. So talk about the daily practice. You have to practice. As much as you might enjoy coming to these lessons, and as much as I love seeing you come here each week, if you don't do the practice, it won't happen for you. This is a fact. The fact is you've got to practice if you want to progress. It's as simple as that. Number 6, communicate. If you are unsure, ask questions. When I talk about communicate, I mean communicating with me, communicating with the network, communicating with other teachers on our Facebook group, wherever. Communicate with us. If you don't know what to do, you've got a problem, ask questions. The more you communicate, the more answers you will get. And speak to anyone who can help you, anyone who you think will be able to give you some answers. And the last one is to confirm the continuation of your students. This means when they get to the end of, say, a block, that introduction, that 5-week introduction, make sure you confirm that they're coming, that they're continuing, that they're definitely on board. Okay, so that's the 7 C's. Let's move on. The daily practice sheet. This is going to lay out for your student your plan, what you're going to be covering. The daily practice sheet will keep your students aware of what they need to be working on each time they sit down to practice. The daily practice sheet contains the 7 essential skills along with reminders of how they should practice. The main role of a teacher is to condition students into good practice habits from the start. The first 5 weeks are critical. By opening to the daily practice sheet at the beginning of every lesson, students are likely to repeat the same behaviour at home. Lastly, the daily practice sheet keeps you aware of maintaining a balanced approach to the lessons and on track with the G4 guitar method. So as teachers, we can easily get carried away or fall into working on particular things. So we might work, say on the chords. We might enjoy chords and think that chords are great, and our students want to learn chords because the songs they're into are mostly with chords. And so then we neglect the arpeggios, and this is exactly what happened to me. I wasn't working on arpeggios early on in my early years, and so when I came across a song that had an arpeggio, I always felt clumsy. I always thought it was difficult, and so I kind of bypassed it and worked more on chords and lead playing. But this unfortunately came back to bite me, because there were certain songs I really wanted to play which included arpeggios. So I buckled down and really worked on those arpeggios. I became inspired by some other players around me. So the thing is that you want to keep a balance of those skills. Yes, the students will go on and find what they want to do eventually. They'll find their strengths. But as a teacher, what we want to do is try and train them up evenly in each of these skills to make sure everything is covered. And that includes reading music. A lot of guitar students and teachers avoid the reading, which is a big mistake, because reading is a great skill. It's something that's very tied into music and learning music, and you want to incorporate it into their education. Imagine not being able to read words on a piece of paper. Imagine the disadvantage you would be if you couldn't read books. Let's not do that to our students. Let's give our students the gift of reading music and make it very easy for them. Now, I'm not a great sight reader, and that's because I didn't get a lot of that early. I wasn't pushed into reading, but I learnt to read, and it serves me well now, because now I can actually pick up a piece of music and learn it from the music. I can learn jazz standards, whatever. Makes it very easy. But can I sight read? No, because I never spent enough time on it. And it's kind of a bit of a regret, but it's okay because I can at least read it. I've got that skill, and we need to give that skill to our students. Whether they go on and become great sight readers, that's up to them. All right, so that's the daily practice sheet. Just to give you a little bit more idea about it, at the top here it covers the skills. The second section in there it talks about songs, just points out that they need to work on current songs. Try to focus on no more than 6 songs at a time. If you give them too many songs, it becomes overwhelming, and it's really important to focus. This is the true aim of my teaching style, is that I want students to focus, because when they focus, they make progress. When they make progress, they feel good. When they feel good, then they want to do more. And that's the way. If you give your students too many things to do, think of it like learning to juggle balls. If I give you 5 balls to juggle at once, you're just going to drop them and you're going to lose confidence and think this is too hard. If I give you 1 ball and say juggle that ball, okay, now that's it, cool. Let's introduce a second ball. I'll show you how to introduce the second ball. Then you get used to it and you learn to juggle more balls. So let's not put too much on our students. Let's teach them to focus. Okay, that's the daily practice sheet. Let's move on. The next thing is the practice log. The practice log is one of the keys to our success. Students should fill in the practice log daily, include the amount of time in minutes, not hours, and the running balance in the right-hand column. Teachers should check every lesson. Students who have not filled in the practice log should be reminded. This shows that you care about your students. If you're not asking your students whether or not they practice, you're not looking in their practice log each week when they come in, it shows you don't really care whether or not they practice. By looking at it, then they realize that you do care, that it's important that they're practicing, it's important that they're coming each week and making progress. So progress will only happen if they practice, and if you focus on the practice, they will fill it in. So we know you may not be able to convince every student. The students who do not fill in their practice log are the most likely to drop out. So this becomes your strongest indicator that you're about to lose a student. If a student is not filling in the practice log, that's an early sign that you're going to lose this student soon. So it gives you that early indicator which will make all the difference. And I'm all about prevention, and having a practice log and having students fill it in helps me to see whether or not I have a problem coming up. So then I can talk to them or talk to their parents. Okay, so that's the practice log. Let's move along. The next one is the levels, the checklists. So the checklists are really part of the secret sauce here, and that is that by having checklists, students become very clear about the goal. They know what they're trying to achieve. They know what they need to be practicing. If a box isn't ticked, then they need to be working on that particular area. Now, for you as a teacher, it makes it very simple for you. You don't need to be keeping lots of notes. You don't need to have a notebook on the side. You don't need to be doing that extra work. It's a lot of time that you could be spending doing something else. The aim of the G4 guitar method is not just to serve the student, but it's to serve you, the teacher. Because if you're doing less work, then you've got more time to focus on the motivation of your student and the execution of your lessons. Many teachers get caught up in the content. I used to remember there was a particular teacher I had at one point, and I think he spent 60-70% of the lesson actually writing on a piece of paper, writing some notes down for me, hand drawing out scales, hand drawing a bunch of chords and progressions. So most of my lesson was wasted with this teacher drawing things out. Okay, I ended up getting these resources, but I never knew what they were for or where they were meant to go. Sure, there were scales and I learned them, and that was great. But what you need to be doing is letting your students know clearly where you're going. What's the goal? What's the direction? Where are we heading here? And that's what the student checklists will do for you. They make it very clear. So in week 5 of the intro, students should begin on the first level in preparation for the next stage. So what you want to do is in that very first lesson, in the very first intro, the 5-week intro, you don't want to be introducing the checklist until the very end of it. And that's where you then explain, you've gone through, you've introduced in the first 4 weeks, you've introduced the skills, the 7 essential skills, given them a few exercises at a time. Each week just covered a few skills. And then at the end of that period, you then introduce the checklist and say, this is where we're going from here. And that helps you with your conversion. And that means that the students will cross over from doing your 5-week introduction into joining you onto a long-term basis, because they're now moving on to the goal. They can see what's going on. Okay, so this is the first in I'm going to do another video in a minute, which I'll pass you on to, but this is the end of this video. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.